How's it going, everyone? My name is Joe, and if you're like me, you're always looking for a good movie to watch on Netflix. Well, I watched a bunch of movies and picked out 10 of my favorite, and I put them in this list. Let's begin with number 1, Into the Wild. Into the Wild is a story about a guy who gives up all of his material assets. He donates all of his money, gives away all of his stuff, and just goes into the Alaskan wilderness for a long time. The main character of the movie is just tired of society and just wants to go away for the while. So what better place is the Alaskan wilderness? After hitchhiking many miles, he's finally dropped off at the edge of the wilderness, and all he has is his gun, some boots, some gear, and that's it. And he decides this is what he wants, and this is what he does. He does what so many people dream about doing, giving up everything and just going. And this is what this movie really embodies. I've always wanted to get up and just go to some random foreign country, so I was able to connect really well with the main character of this movie. For anyone who likes travel or adventure movies, you're gonna love this. I strongly suggest giving it a watch, so put it in your instant queue, and let's move on to number 2. Don't let the title of this next movie spoil it for you. John Dies at the End is one of the funniest and one of my most favorite movies on Netflix. The story revolves around David and John. After taking this crazy drug given to them by some crazy Jamaican guy, they start seeing some crazy stuff. This movie is really non-linear and it's really hard to guess what's gonna happen next. And yes, John, I'm not gonna say if John dies at the end actually, but stumbling across this on Netflix was one of the nicest surprises. After watching it for the first time one night, I watched it again the next night. It was that good. It's really funny, it's really original, and I strongly suggest you watch it. Moving on to number 3. Submarine essentially follows the life of a teenage boy and everything that happens in his life. From trying to be the greatest boyfriend in the world to saving his parents from a disco mystic by pissing in his bedroom, Submarine is really funny, but it also is really serious. Submarine had been in my instant queue for months, and I finally decided to watch it, and I was very happy and very pleased with it. All around, just a great movie, so you should definitely put it in yours too. The number 4 item on my list is Bottle Rocket, directed by Wes Anderson. After 3 friends pull off a heist at a local bookstore, they set their aim a little higher with a meat factory. Other than that, this movie is really hard to describe just because it's really all over the place. Going into this, I really didn't expect to like this movie just because I've never really been a big fan of the Wilson brothers, but after about 20 minutes, it had charmed me and I was laughing, and it's almost like a funny version of Reservoir Dogs. So if you guys were looking for like a comparison, I'd say that's the closest you're ever gonna get. But nonetheless, let's move on to the 5th item on our list, The Cabin in the Woods. When I first heard of this movie, I assumed it was gonna be exactly like the title entails. A bunch of teenagers go into a cabin in the woods and then they all get killed by serial killers. As it turns out, all the people in the cabin are actually contestants on this game show of a sorts, and they just start dying by these crazy monsters. When I first watched this movie, I had no idea what the plot was, so it actually was a great surprise to me when I found out that this was actually a pretty awesome movie. It grabs a hold of the cabin in the woods cliche and just totally owns it, making it one of the funniest, scariest horror movies I've ever seen. And on that note, let's move on to one of the trippiest movies I've ever seen, Enter the Void. Enter the Void absolutely blew me away. After an amateur drug dealer is murdered by the cops, his spirit then goes on this crazy journey of past, present, and future in this kind of out-of-body experience. This movie is shot in first person and also this weird third person that I've never really seen in a movie, kind of like what you'd see in a video game. I was totally captivated by this movie. I watched it at 3 o'clock in the morning thinking I was going to fall asleep to it, but I actually stayed up for the entire movie because it was just that visually stunning. You go on a hallucinogenic journey through the eyes of the main character, which is mind-blowing when you actually see it. Give it 20 minutes and you'll fall in love with it. The first-person perspective that this movie was shot in absolutely blew me away. The cinematography was beautiful, and I could not recommend a more beautiful movie. But let's move on to number 7, The Experiment. In an effort to make fast cash, a group of men volunteer for a program that will put them inside of a jail, except some of them will be placed as guards, and most of them will be placed as the inmates. The purpose of this experiment is to see how fast people will adapt to their surroundings. In no way is this movie very beautiful, that complex, or even really that original, but it is really interesting to watch. If you're looking for something interesting to watch and something that'll keep your attention, I could not recommend this movie anymore. It's a cool idea and it's executed really well, so put it in your instant queue, and let's move on to number 8, Safety Not Guaranteed. After discovering a guy who's supposedly working on a time machine, a journalist tries to get closer to him to try to get the next big story for a newspaper. If you're not big into romantic comedies, don't let that throw you off. Safety Not Guaranteed is a really funny movie with a really big heart. As the movie goes on, you begin to actually feel for the time traveler. You want him to go back in time and change what he wants to change. And by the end of the movie, you actually care about all the characters, which I think is really important in a movie. If you like time travel movies, comedy movies, independent movies, this movie is going to be for you. So stick it into your instant queue, and let's move on to number 9, Kumare. Kumare is a documentary film that follows Kumare, a prophet that goes around teaching spiritual ideas and advice. The catch though is that everything he says, everything he does, everything he is 100% made up. The director of this movie looked around and saw all the fake gurus, all the fake spiritual advice people, and he said, hey, I can do this too. So he created this persona and began his work as a new guru. The director didn't do this for the sake of making fun of people. He did it to show people that they can change their life. They can be the difference in their life. They don't need spiritual advice and the lies of everyone else. They can do it for themselves, and I believe the filmmaker was really trying to teach that lesson. When the film first started, you couldn't believe people were actually following them. People saw him as a prophet, and this is a large group of people. But by the end, you actually feel for him, because people who go to the spiritual advice, they're just looking for something. And the filmmaker wants to tell them that they can be the difference in their life. They can change anything that's wrong with their life. And that's what he proves by the end of it. So if you love documentaries or have never even seen one, I strongly suggest you give this a watch because it's a great movie and has a great message to it. The final movie on my list is one that I had no idea was on Netflix. It is Pulp Fiction. Pulp Fiction is no doubt in my top 5 favorite movies of all time. Directed by Quentin Tarantino, it follows a bunch of different characters in the same situations but with different perspectives. It's one of the greatest movies ever made in my opinion, and it has some of the best dialogue quotes you'll ever know. I'm hoping the majority of you have seen this movie, but if you haven't, now's the perfect time to watch it. It's on Netflix, go watch it before they take it down. You won't have any regrets, I promise. But that is it, guys. Those are 10 good movies you can watch on Netflix right now. If you guys liked it, give me a like. If you want to subscribe, I make these kind of videos all the time. If you guys have any suggestions for the next video, leave them in the comments below. I usually read every single comment, so I'll definitely take your suggestion to heart. Other than that, guys, my name is Joe. If you guys want to, click on either of these boxes to take you to another list of 10 movies. Thanks for watching. See you guys later.